You wanna fire me to save a buck? Go right ahead. So I recently met up with my uncle, and while talking about my major, programming computer science, he told me a story of when he got a promotion, his current position, by getting fired. Several years ago, my uncle, Dan, had a jerk of a boss, JB, who would always flaunt his status of being a manager to the lower-ranked employees and would also be critical of them for the smallest things, taking 2 or 3 minutes too long on breaks, talking to your coworker for even a second, or even taking a sip from your water bottle at your desk. My uncle and his county workers hated this guy, but they loved the job, so they just put up with him for the time being. Uncle Dan told me it was so bad nobody wanted to even interact with him outside of work, and he wasn't invited to any parties or get-together either. One day JB decides to save money for the company by firing Dan for poor performance, and tells him the reason why is because they can hire for cheaper. Now Dan is a calm and logical man. He's very skilled in programming and has years of experience under his belt by that point in his life. So he knows there would be loads of companies fighting for him. Dan didn't put up a fight about it and just cleared out his desk that day, and a month later, while looking for other jobs, he was called by JB telling him he can get his job back, and when Dan refused, because he had a few offers, JB revealed that he was in trouble for firing him with the president. Uncle Dan explained to me that he coded the system they used to distribute assignments and organize tasks, which earned him the president's respect for his skill and expertise. So when he found out he was replaced with someone who, as Dan put it, wouldn't know his ass from an array, he was understandably livid, especially since he didn't hear about it till just now. So JB was forced to offer Dan his position and a raise to convince him to come back, was demoted, and was even more ostracized for the way he looked down on people in the past. It was a funny story. He gets fired and then is given an even better position and pay because his JB was trying to save the company money. He still has that position today, and his pay has only gotten better due to his skills. But the JB couldn't stand being on the same level as the lesser employees he mocked, so he's not there anymore. I think in IT there is always a manager thinking she can save by losing an employee in a screwed up project because they lost an absurdly valuable employee that was the only person in the company that fully understand it. Incredible comeback. Aha. Ooh, delicious. I can relate. I worked for a company that way back in the early 1990s started to customize AutoCAD to tailor it for their specific use. Early results were astonishingly positive, and some tasks were cut from 3 days to 2 hours just because of the custom programming. The automation made designing much more efficient, and also created outputs that greatly improved the speed and accuracy of manufacturing. Every time they added some new feature, they saved costs, so they hired 2 programmers to keep it. Well, 20 years passed and those 2 people had added so much functionality it was astounding. Of course they had to rework the code when AutoCAD was upgraded. By this time the improvements had been around so long that they no longer amazed people. The managers who were there as this massive system was birthed had retired. The new managers had no real appreciation for this homegrown and barely visible thing that was saving millions a year. They weren't there at the start. Then one of the 2 programmers gave the boss a heads up that they will be retiring in 3 years, and it would be wise to get a replacement now so they have time to understand the system. Since that boss didn't think it could be that hard, he blew it off. After all, how complicated could it be if 2 people were all you needed? And the worst that could happen is people could do it manually. Right? No big risk there, right? Another "I'm leaving soon" reminder was sent at the 2-year mark. Another reminder at the 1-year mark. And that was the end of the reminders. Nothing was done. The fateful day arrived. Cake was served. Gifts received. Have a great retirement. 3 months later, AutoCAD sent new upgrades. Typically this meant a couple months of testing, tweaking as needed, then pushing out the upgrades. But who can do the testing? No one knows how. So they thought maybe it would just work, and installed it. It did not work. Due to some internal changes in the AutoCAD API, they called AutoCAD, asking if they had any leads on someone with super deep knowledge of the API. Nope. They called the biggest software contracting firm in town. They had 800 programmers. They had no one with the needed skills. What now? Must find someone or else hire. Literally, 15 people to manually do the work that the system used to do automatically and without mistakes. Called a national search firm. Found 3 people who were interested but wanted 3x the salary of the retired programmer. Company wouldn't pay. Meanwhile, production dropped 70%, plus many errors. Serious danger of missing deadlines that would cost big money. In desperation, they made an offer to one of the 3 qualified interested people. The one programmer who was still there realized, hey, I could use a massive pay boost too. Demanded 2x the current rate. And got it. Last I heard, the system now does about half of what the old one did because it takes forever to absorb the AutoCAD API, the finished output requirements, plus the methodology of how the automation needs to work. The company had to raise their prices to compensate for the productivity loss from losing many of the automation tools. All because one stingy boss wouldn't bring in a replacement because he didn't understand the critical need. Cost savings by cutting one position. $80,000. Increased cost by not having that person. I heard that they calculated it as $1.2 million per year at first. Now it's down to about $500,000 per year. Did your uncle ever get onto him for drinking water? That's karma at its finest. Glad for your uncle. Older employees know more secrets about a company than given credit for. Way to go, uncle. As a software developer of over 25 years, the number of times this happens. JB thinks he's saving money by laying off experienced developers. Is absurd. Tribal knowledge only goes so far, and when you let someone go that understands all the processes and quirks that go with them, then you end up with a bunch of failed processes that could be solved quickly with someone that knows these things, and instead the business suffers while everyone tries to figure out what went wrong and how to fix it. This happened to me a few times where after being let go I'd get a call from JB asking for advice on how to fix something. Usually I'd tell them to eat a bag of donkey DS. The only time I would help is if a coworker called me and asked nicely. I didn't want to leave my former friends and coworkers to suffer. I have a very good boss who has an interesting philosophy on laying off employees. I'm honestly not certain if I think it's a good way to do things or not. And he's never directly admitted this is how he plans things. Basically, he never fires anyone unless he's forced to. We generally do a good job of only hiring good people. But occasionally we misjudge and end up hiring someone who's lazy or incompetent or a jerk. When it becomes clear that such a person is not pulling their weight, they get assigned away from the important stuff so they can't do much damage. But they aren't fired. Then, as happens every few years, word comes down from upper management that we need to cut costs, which means laying off a few employees. My boss wastes no time submitting the names of the bad employees to fire. The result is every employee who's at least halfway competent never has to worry about their job, which is certainly a good thing. But that also means that as long as the company is doing well, The lazy or incompetent or toxic employees keep getting paid. The lazy ones are okay, you can just ignore them. The incompetent are fine. As long as they aren't motivated. A highly motivated incompetent employee can really do some damage. But if we're unlucky enough to have a truly toxic employee, that's when we hope profits start to fall so the company can think about cutting costs. Love this. My husband worked in the same field and was very good at his job. He had worked for a great company for a number of years but had become bored and wanted to work with a different platform, maybe even different coding language than he had in this company for so long. So he gave his notice and left, but they did ask him to stay, etc. Well, job offers rolled in, but he decided which company he wanted to work for, and they were a well-established company of many years. So he felt safe taking it and higher pay. 9 months in. Surprise, the company went bust within a week. He had 5 job offers actually asking him what they can offer to convince him to go with them. His manager at the original company he had left heard and instantly went to the big bosses. He was asked to rejoin them, but with a hefty pay increase. This whole experience and time using different platform had made him realize he was happy to go back to them, and he felt he owed it to his old manager for helping him this way. So back he went to his old company, but with a large wage rise and in a different team, so his job tasks were different enough to keep him happy. From what I heard, they had created the post for him. Good managers and employers are to be valued if you have them. Life doesn't always turn out as you expect. Looks like JB found the buck elsewhere. New managers do not know the term continuity. Wouldn't know his ass from an array. I am stealing that. I might use it in the future. Good story. An even better ending. The managers who only see value in the bottom dollar rather than see the value in the employees who are doing all the work are the absolute worst. But the JB couldn't stand being on the same level as the lesser employees. He mocked, so he's not there anymore. That will punish your uncle. JB sure showed him. Now that you're a lesser employee, I figured I'd fill you in on our traditions. We like to get a drink together Friday nights after work. Yay, it's a great time. You're not invited though. Just figured you should know since you're a lesser employee. Great closing line to tie it all up. Way to go, Uncle Dan. The only thing that would have made this better is if Dan came back as JB's boss. Penny smart and $1 foolish. I dunno. This is more our passive revenge than malicious compliance. What's the malicious compliance part? Where's the malicious compliance?
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.